entering the open date, the first priority is getting our health back, as possible as we can get it. And so being a healthy football team and, doing the small things from the treatments to the sleep to the nutrition, and then going back to the basics and the fundamentals. And I think it's no secret. It starts with special teams. It starts with execution in all three phases, and then, obviously always bye-week recruiting as well. So there's a number of things with our current football team that we are working on.
First up, we have Danny Brewer, the Rutherford Reader.
Coach, how's it going today?
Doing good, thanks, Danny.
What's the key to getting the most out of you guys the rest of the year?
Well, we've talked about it all year. Is we have to extract every ounce of value that every person has in our football program and get the most out of them. And I think just continuing on the process and, everyone being accountable to each other. We talk about a standard and the expectations. We talk about pride and performance, but it's overall accountability to yourself, to every individual on this football team. And, I like the way we've approached the bye week so far. I've liked our mentality, but I think it's understanding, where we're at, what we need to do to get there, but constant improvement in everything that we're doing.
Is patience a part of the brick-by-brick mentality when you're trying to build something?
Well, I'm a very impatient person, to say the least, but it is, and you can't waver, and you have a plan to win, you have a formula, and every day you work to execute that plan, and, every day you're chipping away, whether it's changing a culture, whether it's, your standard, your expectations. It all starts with a foundation, and it starts with people and a belief system and a work ethic and an attitude and a mentality, and, it's like I said last week, we want everything right now, but I see progress, and sometimes progress may not be, indicated in the win column, but I see progress each and every day. I see players making monumental strides. I see the program getting better in all phases, all aspects, but it does take a patience level, and I think, as a head football coach, we're extremely competitive and we all want to win, and that's, why we're in this great profession. But I think a lot of times you have to take the emotion out of it, and you have to look, and you have to look and you have to see where your program is, hour by hour, day by day, and you continue to progress and get better, and that's what we're doing.
Coach, appreciate your time. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Next is Maurice Patton of the Tennessean.
Coach, in your last recruiting class, I think you guys had about 5 early enrollees, and it sounds as though you're going to have about that many again this time. Is that something that you all as a staff encourage on a case-by-case or across the board, or is that something that the kids are doing on their own? How does that come about?
Well, I think it's a combination of all those things that you just spoke about, but I do believe it's case by case. Every individual's different. It does take, a young man with some maturity. You talk about an individual who should be going to prom, and they're in college. They're taking the academic workload. They're in the structure of a college football program. So I think it's, can the individual handle it from a maturation process? But I also think it's the resources that you have for them once they get on campus. And obviously we have that's an edge, that we have here at Tennessee with the resources that we have for them to succeed. So, obviously it helps. It's going to help us immensely as we continue to progress this football program forward. And, we're expecting, some early enrollees, just like most of the schools now in the country. I think it's become more the norm than usual. But I do think it's a case-by-case situation.
Can you talk a little bit about what the value is of having those early enrollees?
Well, I think from a development standpoint, that development process, both mentally, physically, the growth and maturation process of a young man starts early. They get a jump start on everything. They get a jump start on college classes. They get a jump start in the strength and conditioning field. The brotherhood, the family, the team chemistry they become a part of, and they go through spring football. So I think the learning curve for them is very high. I think, it just gives them more maturity. It gives them, more experience. And so I think it's most of the players, no matter where we have been that have enrolled early, most of them have played as true freshmen. And when they enrolled early, that really helped them in terms of their overall development, both in the classroom and on the football field.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Bob Holton, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette.
Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
Good morning. Thank you.
Hey, I think, you look at Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, three of the schools with new coaches. Like, you guys are combined 1-16 in the SEC. Of course, you got that big one over Carolina. But what do you think that says about, how tough it is to rebuild a program in this conference right now?
Well, I've said that is, this is the best football conference in the country. And when you're trying to rebuild a football program, it's a challenge anywhere you go. But it makes it even more of a challenge when it's in the SEC. And, you look at the teams that really win consistently in this conference is they have consistency and continuity. And, consistency and continuity in their coaching staff and their recruitment and the overall development of their players and in their programs. So you're exactly right. It is a tremendous challenge each and every week. And then obviously when you're putting together a new program, it makes it that much more challenging.
You haven't just played Auburn, and they're kind of exception to the rule with a new coach. But, of course, Gus had been there before, and he's got a very veteran SEC staff. How much do you think it helps Auburn that Gus had previous experience there and that, a bunch of his guys are SEC, coaches too?
Well, I think the one thing is, there's all good coaches in this conference, and, experience is experience. Obviously, it helps when you have some SEC experience, but coaching is coaching, recruiting is recruiting. And, Gus has done a tremendous job at Auburn. They're a very talented football team. They have a lot of players that have played a lot of football, and you can see that they have that leadership and that confidence about them. So, again, I just think it's the overall structure of the league in terms of, the competition and the depth of the conference. Anybody's capable of beating anybody any given Saturday. I think that's what separates our conferences from top to bottom. There's not much of a drop-off.
Next is Dwayne Rank of the Montgomery Advertiser.
Yes, Coach. Looking back on film of the Auburn game, was defending the read option, was it more of what Auburn did, or was it more of what you guys didn't do?
Well, I think it's a combination. First of all, they're a very, very talented football team. And Nick Marshall's a special player. I said it before we played him, and I'll say it again. He's a difference maker, and he's dynamic. He's explosive with the ball in his hands. And there was a number of times where, they just, quite frankly, won their one-on-one matchups. We did not do a good job of tackling in any of the phases, special teams nor defense. There was a lot of times where, we had players in position to make plays, and we just weren't able to do that. I think also the nature of their scheme, really challenges your eye discipline and really, taking ownership and accountability in your reads. And there's a number of times where maybe, our safety may have stepped inside when he shouldn't have, and against an explosive football team, they magnify any slight mistake you make. It's magnified because of their team speed.
Okay, just to follow that up, Coach, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like a lot of formations, but the same play or plays. I mean, is that accurate or not in terms of their offense?
Well, I think, you get a lot of the same schemes, but different formationally, and that's good offensive football. You do it over and over again, and, when you have great players, Gus does a great job with that, but also I think the tempo by which they play with, they do a great job at changing their tempos up. So I think they change the tempo of the game, and they're executing and they're playing at a high level, and I think they're physical as well. So again, I was very, very impressed with that football team.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Next is Chase Goodbread of NFL.com.
Coach, back in September on this call, I asked you about Daniel McCullers and what he had done in the offseason and whatnot, and you had mentioned that he'd come a long way in the offseason, but that you were still looking for more consistency day-to-day in practice to practice with him. Can you just kind of circle back on that answer and update how he's done in that regard these last couple of months?
Sure. Well, we always talk about pride in performance. And, in football, especially in the offensive and defensive lines, you always work to dominate your opponent. And, it all starts with a mentality. It all starts with a work ethic. It all starts with that strain to get off blocks and create separation. So a lot goes into it. And, I think the big thing for Dan is, in finishing his career out here is he's made tremendous strides in moving forward. But, the big thing with him is consistency, overall consistency in his performance each and every day, whether it be in practice or on the game field, and a high level of effort and mentality that it takes to play winning football.